Eric Bossi, national basketball recruiting analyst for Rivals.com with Armen and Levack. And Boss, thanks for your time today, man, because we are trying to figure out, now that the Knicks have the 4th overall pick in the NBA draft coming up this summer, what is available to them. And the first name we're hearing the most, Bossi, is about Emmanuel Mudiay. Of course, ended up playing overseas in China, but you saw Emmanuel a lot, and you were very close with he and the people around him throughout high school. If he's the best option for the Knicks at 4, what kind of player is he at this point, boss?
Emmanuel, he's kind of that new age NBA point guard. He's big, he's 6'4", he's strong, he's athletic. His bread and butter is getting to the rim and kind of making plays happen in the lane. A little bit John Wallish, though not quite as fast and maybe not quite as relentless in attacking the rim. You know, if any of your listeners are familiar with Drew Holiday at all, he's got a little bit of him in him because he's got real high potential on the defensive side. And I think that year in China, even though he got injured and didn't really play a lot, helps, I think, for a rookie coming in. He's gotten used to a professional lifestyle and being away from home and dealing with all the different people who are going to be coming at him because he has money now. So whoever gets him, if it be the Knicks at number 4, is going to get a very mature guy who kind of knows how to deal with the pressures that come around him. And he's a kind of a level-headed kid to begin with. So, you know, I would think he'd be about as good a scenario as you could hope for if you're the Knicks, because certainly, you know, Karl Anthony Towns or Jahlil Okafor is falling at number 4.
Now, when you say things like level-headed and mature and prepared, I think this, all of a sudden, I get excited because whoever sits next to Carmelo Anthony is going to have those qualities. Will he be able to, you know, kind of be second fiddle for a while? Will that work for him?
Oh, yeah. You know, Emmanuel is, you know, and I've known this kid since he's like 14 years old. He's a pretty easygoing kid. Some of these high school kids are basically glory hogs in high school and crave the attention in the media. E-Man was never that way. He just kind of went along and did his thing, was always very good with the media, but wasn't a self-promoter or anything like that. And, you know, I think he's kind of quiet by nature, which I think he'll have to become a little bit more vocal leader. And as you mentioned, if you're playing alongside a guy like Carmelo Anthony, that's going to maybe be a little tough early, but I really do think he's built to handle the NBA at an early age. Now it's just a matter of the skills translating.
Now, the other name that has been, you know, a possible fall, like if Mudiay goes 3, the Knicks get D'Angelo Russell. What do you see in Russell's game?
Russell, he's kind of a different player than Mudiay. He's a much better shooter from deep, probably not quite as explosive athletically, more kind of one of those guys that he's kind of watery. He doesn't really look like he's going that hard, and the next thing you know, he's by you. He's an outstanding passer, sees the floor very well, pretty good in pick-and-roll situations, which, you know, there's not a lot of pick-and-roll situations in the triangle, so I guess that's not really all that necessary, but his passing skills are a good fit for the triangle. And he's a guy that you knew he was going to be really good, but his performance as a freshman at Ohio State certainly came as a little bit of a surprise. He's a 5-star prospect, top 15 type player in the country, but I don't think any of us expected him to go in and have the kind of year that he had. So he's still a little bit of an unknown in terms of how ready is he right away physically, you know, was what we saw at Ohio State something we can keep expecting down the road.
So based off your two responses here on these two guys, in your mind, perhaps Russell's the one available before Mudiay maybe at 3?
Now that the draft order's set, there's no question that the Towns and Okafor are going to go 1 and 2 in one order or another. Then it's looking like Russell and E-Man should be the next couple picks. So I would expect that one of those guys would be available. It'd be a surprise if both are gone, because that would mean that Towns or Okafor slid very far.
Right. Eric Bossi, national basketball recruiting analyst of Rivals.com. Find him on Twitter at eBossHoops.
Eric, as we look at where the Knicks, quote-unquote, should have been drafting, the second spot, maybe even the first, what kind of talent drop-off are we looking at when you get past, you know, Towns and Okafor and then start talking about the Russells and Mudiays?
I don't think it's that big of a talent drop-off, because right now we're in theory, and we think that these guys should be really good, but I don't think any of these guys are at the level of absolute no-brainer going to be an NBA star. With Okafor, he's extremely skilled, but he's a little bit earthbound. He's not an elite leaper. He's not a big rim protector, and he's a poor shooter. You know, his free throws have got to get better, and he's got to learn to be able to hit a pick and pop shot. Towns is certainly can shoot. He's got more range than the two. He's a little bit longer, better rim protector. But quickness-wise, we're going to see, can he hang with elite NBA big men? So I don't think there's a huge drop-off, but I think that Towns and Okafor are certainly the two most polished guys in the draft. They seem to have, offensively, the fewest flaws for 19-year-old big guys. They're about as complete as you can get.
Eric, you follow these guys when they're in middle school and high school, and you're really close with them and their family. When you look at the overall NBA draft prospects, first, even into the second round, is there a guy that you've been watching since that high school age where you go, man, one day this kid is going to make a really good pro? He might not have the best talent, but if I'm a team in the second round, I like how this kid is built. I like what he brings between the ears. Just at the pro level, this kid has that it factor. Is there anybody that jumps out like that maybe later in the draft to you?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Before the NCAA tournament, I would have told you that I thought Justice Winslow was going to go way too low in the draft because NBA teams that I was talking to were talking about him in the late teens, the mid-20s. So he's off the table because he's going to be probably a top 7 pick. But the guy that I like, that I've always loved, is Rashad Vaughn out of UNLV. Everything about him is just always screams like NBA 2 guard to me. He's one of the few guys in the draft who can really create his own shot. He goes left very well. He's got good size. He's around 6'4", probably around 6'5". He's a good athlete, and he's one of those kind of cold-hearted shooters where he can miss 15 in a row and he knows the 16th one is going in. And I've always felt that he's going to be a good NBA player. So he's kind of my sleeper in the draft. And another guy that I've always thought of as kind of a sleeper would be JP Tokoto. I know he doesn't shoot it well at all, but he can create for others. He has all the tools to be a big-time defender. And, he's at the elite end of NBA assets. So those two guys kind of jump out to me.
Eric Bossi of Rivals.com, national basketball recruiting analyst. Check out his work, eBossHoops on Twitter. And Bossi, we have a kid here locally we're really excited about going into his senior year, class of 2016, Kevin Herter. And he has absolutely blown up out of Shin High School in the last 6 months. He now has offers from Davidson, George Washington, Creighton, Iowa, Maryland, Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, Texas Tech. Over 24 schools have offered Herter. I know you've seen him play. What do you see in this guy?
Kevin is a guy who, at least in terms of recruiting-wise, kind of came out of nowhere this spring. Playing with the Albany City Rocks, coached by Jim Hart, which is a program that has long done a really good job with the upstate kids up there. He's a thin kid, but he shoots it extremely well from deep, and he's a basketball player. The guy has a great feel for the game. He passes. He can play a little point guard for you, even though he's going to be 2 on the college level. And even though he's thin and lean, the dude competes, and he's just one of those guys who gets a lot done. And you go and watch, and you sit down and you watch a team like his where no one's been kind of hyped up at all, and you see a kid like him, you're like, wow, he can play. He's got a teammate in the summer, Quentin Rose, who's also from up that way, who's really good too, a 6'5" wing. So Herter's definitely made a name for himself, and probably he's going to move up a little bit in the rankings. He's probably like a top 75 type player in the country right now as I look at things and thinking about where we'll adjust them.
Eric Bossi, national basketball recruiting analyst for Rivals.com. If you don't have a Rival subscription and you're into high school hoops, you're doing it wrong. Follow him on Twitter at eBossHoops. Bossi, thanks so much for squeezing us in your schedule today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.